Welcome to Slow News Day. I'm Steve Plakenin.
And I'm Sarah Hall.
We're here highlighting artists, activists, organizers, and agitators pushing back against late-stage capitalism here in the heart of the empire. And joining us today is our new buddy. He's over in Visalia, California. He will be running against Kamala Harris for Senate in California in 2022, and he's starting his campaign now because he's got a fuck ton of work to do going up against this establishment neoliberal nightmare. He is the CEO and director of a new nonprofit called TV4TV, the Vision for the Valley, trying to bring a university to Tulare County. Welcome to the show, please, John Michael Williams. John, how's it going, brother?
Hi, good. How are you?
Doing all right, man. Feeling a little out of breath after that intro. I did not practice my circular breathing this morning. I even listened to Black Thought. I was trying. I was.
Well, thank you all so much for having me on. I mean, it's definitely nice it's a breath of fresh air when you have independent journalists that are working to uncover the truth and working to give candidates like myself a platform to speak from, because I'll probably never be on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or any of them. So, I'd much rather do an interview with people that are like-minded, that understand the danger of neoliberalism. So I thank you.
Sure, man. We're happy to have you. We're here to push back against the narrative that's, there's not enough of that going on. There aren't enough people that are doing not just independent journalism or putting out independent content, but there's I keep noticing a lot of these progressive independent media people who wander back over into that soft, comfy center, and they're like, well, Elizabeth Warren isn't that bad. Waleed Shahid in specific, that motherfucker, you know what I'm talking about, right? The Just Us Democrats guy.
Yeah.
His willingness and Sean King's willingness to just openly embrace a party that doesn't stand for them, that doesn't represent them, and that never will. And these guys wanting a seat at that table, it is kind of a reflection of Kamala Harris's entire career. So if you want to kind of go into that a little bit and let our folks know why you're running against this lady, that would be great.
You're so nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic early.
You're so sweet. Yes, that lady. So, my campaign against Kamala Harris, to give you a little bit of a background on me. So I ran for the House in 2018. I am in California's 22nd congressional district. The seat right now is held by Devin Nunes.
Oh, right.
If you didn't pay attention to that, no worries. It was a pretty high-profile campaign that a certain man named Andrew Jans ran against Devin Nunes, and so I shared the stage with Andrew Jans at several points in the campaign. I shared the stage with him. Andrew and I know each other. I would say, as well as you can when you're running for the same position, right? But my whole campaign at that time, and still what our campaign for Senate is based on, is rejection of corporate money from the beginning, not a Kamala Harris type situation where it's like, I'm going to take corporate money until I get to where I need to be, and then I'm not taking corporate money anymore, so we're good, right? We're okay, right? We're not taking that approach. We're taking the approach.
So real quick, just a quick point about that. This whole we're not taking corporate PAC money. All that means is that a PAC is not putting money into that particular candidate's coffer, but it in no way, shape, or form stops a PAC from putting out their own material in support of that candidate, with coordinating with any other number of groups to make it look like that candidate has fully endorsed or has coordinated with that PAC. And it's just this bullshit, mealy-mouthed fucking phrase now. We're not going to take PAC, because they realized that populism appeals to people. It's fucking weird.
Yes, absolutely. And so definitely, when I say that we're not taking money from corporate PACs, what I mean to say is that if in the off chance that there is a corporate PAC that puts out an ad on our behalf or, tries to advocate for us, we're going to go ahead and say that wasn't us. We don't support that ad. We don't support the message. We're not afraid, and I would say that our team is fully behind the idea. We're not afraid to really stand in our truth. And so back to Kamala, or I should say back to why I'm running against her. I'm running against her because she hasn't stood in her truth. Even now today, we see these people that are trying to advocate for her and try to rewrite history. No, there's really a firm history of who Kamala Harris is. We can try to rewrite it all day long. You can try to say that that's not what she is now. But the fact is, she was a prosecutor in San Francisco. She was district attorney in San Francisco. She was the attorney general of California. And now she's a senator from California, one of the senators from California. And so this attempt to try to say that Kamala Harris is a progressive or she is for progressive values is just simply not true. And there's a track record behind it to support that. And so, again, we're basing our campaign on some simple values, right? So populism, definitely, we're a campaign of the people, for the people, by the people. And we're not going to put up with this idea that Kamala Harris has ever been any of those things, because as far as I can see, and as far as most of us can see, I would think, that are truly awake, Kamala Harris has only been for herself. She's only ever been for her own trajectory, where she is going in her political career, in her, it's always been about where can Kamala Harris go next to really get more power. And the power that she's been entrusted with has always been used in a way that defeats brown and black people, really people of all color. It's always been used in a way that keeps people under the heel of herself. And so that is why we're running against her.
Yeah, it's almost like she's a criminally insane sociopathic hoarder of money and power, and brain damaged in a way that the rest of us are suffering. With dead
Well, I mean,
rats
what I
all
thought it
over
was
the
interesting
house.
is that she started selling her book last week or a couple weeks ago. You're tweeting about the government shutdown and how it's Trump's fault on one hand, and on the other hand, you're telling people to buy your book. Who is running her campaign? Is what I really wonder. Who is running your fucking campaign that told you it was okay to announce on MLK Day that it was okay to try to sell your book when you're also simultaneously talking about people starving? Who told you that any of this was okay, or that like we weren't going to remember it? And that's where I'm at. I don't know about y'all, but I'm on the wait. Who is running this shit right now?
I can tell you who's running it, though I can, because there have been a couple of articles about it. She has picked up the Hillary Clinton staffers that didn't go to Elizabeth Warren and Kirsten Gillibrand. So now, this year, for the 2020 election, we get not one, not two, but three different Hillary Clintons. And if that is not progress, motherfucker, I can't think of any. I can't
You know what?
think of a
They all
better
have
example.
vaginas. So, us even talking about them in a negative light makes us sexist. I don't know about you, but I'm clearly a sexist.
She's sexist, you're racist, and I'm a misogynist. That's how this works in
That's how it works.
The David Brock world.
Okay.
I particularly love the influx now of all of these people who have this I lived rent-free in Bernie Sanders' head for the entirety of the fucking 2016 election, but now I think he's clearly the devil, and not only will I not work for him or vote for him, I will actively seek to destroy him. And there is a narrative of this now, and if it is not, if it's organic and genuine, I swear to Christ, dude, I will work my ass off for Kamala Harris. I will. If that's a genuine narrative, I will go work for her right now, and I will put all of my energy into getting her elected, because I do not believe for a fucking second that people who believed in Bernie Sanders and are frustrated enough to the point to where they're saying fuck it, for them to move to the neoliberal center as opposed to idiots like H.A. Goodman who now exist to lick Donald Trump's taint, or fucking or people like, there's a lot of Twitter personalities that really stood up for Bernie in 2016 that are now like, fuck, that is going to be a huge rightward compromise for me. And it's not that I'm going to walk away from that. Like, I'll suck it up and vote for the dude, but I'm doing it knowing I'm going to be disappointed immediately. You know, not, holy fuck, let me stand up for Kirsten fucking Gillibrand. Like...
And where are all these blue check marks coming from is my question. Because we've been trying to get a blue check mark from Twitter forever. Like, forever we've been trying to get one. And it's like, a lot of these motherfuckers have blue check marks. And I'm like, how did you get your blue check mark? I saw one earlier. This person has had an account since 2009. They have 0 followers. They're following like 2 or 3 people, of course, Kamala, and of course, Kristen, and, you know, Kristen Jellybean, and of course, maybe I think Elizabeth Warren. And it's like, how did you get your blue check mark? I'm really confused as to how you got a blue check mark when I have run for Congress before. I know plenty of brilliant candidates who have run before in the past, Sema Hernandez in Texas being one, who ran against Beto O'Rourke and got, you know, over 200,000 votes, who doesn't have a blue check mark. So I'm like, I'm really trying to figure out, like, how did that happen exactly? And it really is this.
How much do they cost?
So here's
how much did it cost, right? That's what it really comes down to. That's always the question. How much did that blue check mark cost you? Because the legitimacy, that the psychological aspect that goes behind having that blue check mark cannot be underestimated. It can't. And so it's just interesting to me that all these people, like you said before, are coming out and they're saying, I love Bernie, but, right? And I learned a long time ago that when you say but, anything you said before the word but is instantly negated. So when you have those people that are coming out saying, I love Bernie, but, it's like, well, okay, where is this all coming from? It's all a coordinated, concentrated effort to try to really undermine a man who has spent his entire adult life and most of his pre-adult life advocating on our behalf. Doesn't matter what your skin color is, doesn't matter what your sexuality is. There are literal photos of this man being arrested working on our behalf. And all of this is done to delegitimize him. And it's like, what? Like, where? I don't understand. So,
well, so anytime anyone stands up to ostensibly what is management, right? The reaction by management is to immediately freak out and demonize that person. We know that Karl Rove was really into that Machiavellian aspect of use your opponent's strengths against them, beat them with their strengths, and lo and behold, Hillary Clinton ran with that playbook like she fucking wrote it, because at the end of the day,
she has a vagina. Hello, she did write it. Sorry.
There's no daylight. There's no daylight between Hillary Clinton's campaign and any campaign operated by Karl Rove. None. Yep. And we are going to see the exact same tactics applied to all of the Hillary Clinton staffers who are now telling Kamala Harris to fucking announce on MLK Day, Elizabeth Warren to take that DNA test, Kirsten Gillibrand to appear in public and say things. Like, it's just bad advice all around by these people. And completely left out of this identity politics bingo conversation is Tulsi Gabbard.
I love Tulsi.
I'm going to make this perfectly clear right now. Like, voting for anyone in a presidential election that is not named Cynthia McKinney is always going to be a huge rightward compromise for me. You know, it's not anything that I do happily, right? Because I have seen how rigged the system is. We have spoken to people since we started the show and prior to that have been actively fucked over in an election. You know, I mean, Tim Canova, watching what happened to him, like, felt incredibly personal. You know, I've interviewed Tim before. We have a dialogue.
I loved him.
When you see that happen, it my question now, and I'm going to ask you, and you don't even have to answer it if you don't want to, but I would like it if you did.
I will
Let's say Bernie Sanders makes it through the primary, makes it into the general, has the full support of the Democratic Party, wins the presidential election. Can you trust him at all to do the right thing at that point? Like, what concessions does he have to make in order to get into that spot? Because if he doesn't, I don't think these motherfuckers will hesitate to put a bullet in him in front of people, just to be like, this is what happens when you try to get health care.
So let's back up. So I think that Bernie Sanders will ever get the full support of the Democratic Party? No, I don't. I don't think he ever will. And so I think that you're presuming a lot to assume that if he does win the nomination, that they're going to get wholeheartedly behind him. They won't. They never will. Bernie Sanders, this whole Bernie Sanders is really a Democrat thing comes from it comes from Bernie Sanders himself saying, I'm not a Democrat because the Democrats are doing it wrong too, right? He has long rejected the assertion that we have to choose the lesser of two evils. That's just who he is. Do I think Bernie Sanders is perfect? No, not at all. Do I think he makes mistakes? Absolutely. I would love to talk with him someday about his record of voting for war. I would love to, and I know that you mentioned Cynthia McKinney. Cynthia McKinney has long been one of those people that has said, look, the U.S. is an imperialist state. We are fighting wars that we cannot afford to fight, that we should not be morally willing to do so. And I would like to take Bernie Sanders to task for some of those things. That being said, do I think Bernie Sanders is the lesser of two evils? No, not at all. I think he's not as good as I would like him to be, but I think sometimes I'm not as good as I would like me to be. And so I think that to hold that against him is unfair. So to your primary assertion, the Democratic Party will never get behind Bernie. Do I think that they would absolutely not hesitate, the powers that be, not just the Democratic Party, but the deep state, as some people would call it? Do I think they would hesitate to, to use your words, put a bullet in him, whether literally or figuratively? No, I don't think they would at all. I think that we have come to a precipice in American politics to where too many people are awake now. Way too many people are awake now. And it's all that damn Bernie Sanders' fault. If he had just shut up and let Hillary be the nominee, none of this would have ever happened. And I think that they continue to underestimate how awake we all are. They continue to underestimate exactly what we know and how willing we are to fight them on point for point all the way. That's why we saw Kamala put out her MLK announcement. That's why we see Kirsten Gillibrand trying to pretend like she has a chance. That's why we see Elizabeth Warren trying to pretend like we don't remember who she used to be before she got power. That's why we continue to see these three versions of Hillary Clinton come out, because they don't really think that we're truly awake. And so I don't know if this really answered your question so much, but to make my point is, it is absolutely essentially up to us to make sure that Bernie Sanders is not the end-all be-all. He cannot be the end-all be-all, because if he does die, which he is a man, he will die one day. If we make him everything, then the movement will die with him. And I say that we should not do that. I say that we should absolutely each be figuring out where we can run, what we can do to further that dream. It's like Martin Luther King said before, I have a dream. His dream wasn't about him. It wasn't about, I, Martin Luther King, have a dream, and this dream is going to be with me, and when I die, the dream is going to die too. It was, I have a dream that one day this is how things will be. And so I say that we must continue to keep Bernie's dream alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Where I would kind of back up a little bit is that personally, I said this to Jamarl Thomas like last week. Like, I'm for whatever gets us to the fully automated gay luxury space communism that Star Trek promised us the fastest. Like, that's
yes!
that's where I would like to be. And our good buddy Ben, who has a show called Odin's Alchemy on the Cauldron and on a TV station now. I can't remember which one. I'll have to plug it later. He says that a revolution only brings you back to the same spot. That's what a revolution does. And so what I think I would like to advocate is a break out of that cycle, and I would like to see genuinely new ideas and genuinely new politics not come out of whatever this Bernie movement is. You know, you said to make a distinction that you were not a Bernie-crat, you are an independent, and I appreciate that. I do. I respect the fuck out of that. I don't think that voting in a rigged system for pre-selected candidates inside a duopoly is a realistic path to break out of this cycle. I don't.
So you don't want to stop the will, you want to break the will, to quote Daenerys Targaryen, right?
Okay.
And I can see the wisdom in that. That you don't want to stop the will, you want to break the will, right? Yeah. I can see the wisdom in that. I mean, I think that, yeah, do we need a new system? Obviously. So someone once asked me, would I be for abolishing the Senate? And I said, absolutely. The way our Constitution is written does not work for the millions of people that we currently have now. It just doesn't. The fact that each state, you know, when you do the math, and other people have done it, and I've seen the math of, you know, even the last midterm of how many people voted for Democratic candidates versus how many people voted for Republican candidates, and this is what the makeup looks like. That math is getting more and more stressed apart. And so I would say, yeah, I would be for abolishing the Senate or increasing representation in the House of Representatives. Most lower chambers around the world have at least 1,000 people in them. We have 435. The representation is just not there. It's not there to effectively create laws and to make change. And so, yeah, I think in one sense you are right. As far as the duopoly goes, I think it's going to take more candidates like Tim. I mean, Tim ran independent. He could have run against, Debbie Wasserman Schultz under, the Democratic Party banner, and Tim would have been like Bernie. He would have never gotten support, even if he had one. When we ran for the House, we ran as an independent, and everyone told us, you're never going to get the support that you need to do what you need to do. And I'm not a big fan of you're never or it's never. I'm more of a fan of, hey, look, it hasn't happened before, but we can cause that to happen if we come together. And so that's just my personal take on it.
You're also an advocate of term limits, right? Like as
Yes.
a policy position, as a thing that you want. I think that's vital.
Yeah, I am. I'm definitely an advocate for term limits. I mean, some of these people have been in Congress since before I was alive. We look at Maxine Waters. We look at Nancy Pelosi. I think it's been in there since '91. So I was, 3? I mean, there's a list of people that have been in Congress longer than most of my life almost. And there's some good ones. Don't get me wrong. There are some great ones like Bernie. There are some great people that have been there for that long. But I don't see any reason why longer than 20 years. And we're kind of divided. My team and I are kind of divided on how to split it up. But we think 20 years, either way, whether it's in the House, 20 years straight in the House, or you do a few terms in the House, then move on to the Senate. We think that's enough. If you couldn't do what you needed to do in 20 years, then you were not. We're not forging the relationships that needed to be forged, and it's time to pass that torch. And so that's just me. But yes, I am absolutely an advocate for term limits. In fact, I will not serve. I've already decided I won't serve more than one term. I will go to Washington for 6 years, and I will do what I can in 6 years. And maybe this will come back to bite me in the ass, and I'll come back and say, wow, I wish that I would have. But I don't believe in taking positions on such serious matters only to take them back later. And that's what we've seen continually with a lot of politicians like Kamala, who has taken strong positions on things to come back on them. But my position is, look, term limits are something that we absolutely need. We have them in California. They work wonderfully. There are term limits. I think it's about 20 years, give or take, on both sides. They recently changed it a few years ago, but that's how it should be. That's how it should be. It should be that as our founding fathers intended, that we have citizen legislators that go to Washington for a purpose, they come home, and that's it. And we don't have that anymore. We have career politicians.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just you. I feel like a lot of American people would appreciate term limits over, say, like Space Force defending us from space Mexicans or something.
Need that space wall.
You gotta watch out. They're not bringing their best. The space Mexicans are not bringing their best. They're racist.
Yeah. I think that I'm not gonna say in terms of term limits. I am gonna say that. Fuck, that's a clunky sentence. When you think about term limits, what I think about immediately is Nancy Pelosi's wealth trajectory over her time as a U.S. representative, or the fact that, like, there are still people alive and serving in Congress that were voting against making MLK Day a national holiday. And John McCain, who I'm not unconvinced wasn't murdered. He was one of those guys, man, and he just passed away last year. You know, like, there's still a contingent of people who, like John Lewis was marching for civil rights, and now he votes in favor of banks to financially limit and restrict the human rights of people of color. Like, it's a weird kind of thing, and I feel fucked up saying, like, I'm disappointed in John Lewis, but I'm disappointed in John Lewis, like, as a human being, like his career arc, and watching him, especially in 2016, say, like, I don't remember Bernie from those days, when there's a picture of Bernie Sanders like 4 feet away from him, you know, like in real, and then, but I remember Bill and Hillary out there because they were standing with people in fucking white sheets because they were working for Barry goddamn Goldwater. That's why they would stick out to you, because they were...
Of course you fucking remember them, John. Like, have a seat.
But the amount of the amount of, like, lack of shame to be able to make that statement with a straight face, and he didn't look like it bothered his soul too much, you know. That's what we have. We have a public relations firm for America's oligarchy and our elected officials right now, and there's, I mean, the only way to break out of that is to have a bunch of you know?
And you're also I have lobbying ban written down in my notes. That might be a nice place to go from term limits for you.
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be a ban on lobbying, because what we see, and we've seen this, and it's been something that's been reported on by lots of people far smarter than I, is that people, when they lose their reelection or they choose not to seek reelection, they instantly move from working on Capitol Hill to working on K Street. And so there needs to be a ban on that. There needs to be a ban on, look, if you were a representative or anyone that worked in the federal government for any length of time, in any position, then you cannot accept a job with any of these companies. I think that there's nothing wrong with doing that. It ensures that we maintain that trust. A perfect example of this is the gentleman, I think he's Pennsylvania's 10th, I want to say, the other day just resigned. He just won re-election a couple months ago, just resigned, and now he's going to go work on K Street, I want to say. And he's going to go be a lobbyist for his old colleagues that he literally just left from.
Yeah,
that's unacceptable.
That's Howard Dean did that too, like, notoriously left the DNC chair and went straight to a pharmaceutical lobbying firm, and now he shouts down progressives like he's fucking editor for the National Review, you know, or like he's Rahm Emanuel, or like he's Barack Obama. Like, that's how he treats you.
Right, and remember, Howard Dean at one point in time was like the progressive, like, wet dream kind of, like, it was like, whoa, this guy's like, he's got it, he knows what he's talking about.
I'm from the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, Howard Dean used to tell people all the time, open up and that was supposed to mean that he was like the candidate for the people, and he would stand with unions, and he had these somewhat open ideas as a former governor of Vermont about cannabis, and he was supposed to be like this real progressive guy, and he screamed on camera, and so they made him go away. The 2004, the Democrats got their ass kicked because they ran John Kerry, and then Howard Dean came up with the 50-state strategy, which I don't know why a political party did not have a strategy previously to go to all 50 states to campaign in them for a presidential election. Seems like they were kind of letting everybody know that it's not a legitimate process to begin with. But,
so true.
But to reward Howard Dean's 50-state strategy, they used it to elect a fuck ton of neoliberals and then abandoned it immediately after they got Obama in the White House.
Right.
And you have a what?
Stabbed in the face.
You have a 50.
Stabbed.
When you told Joy that Sarah fell out of her fucking chair. You have a 50 county strategy, though, right?
Yeah. So it's 50. I think it's 53 or 54, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we're going to be going to every county in California. For those who don't know, I live in a very conservative county. So I live in Tulare County. Which is a very conservative county. But my logic on this is, look, if I can talk to the people in my county, who it's like Trump country Bible Belt of California, if I can talk to the people in my county, then I can talk to them anywhere. And so am I going to stay away from LA County? Probably. Am I still going to go there? Yeah. But am I going to stay away from Kamala Harris bastion where people are, vote blue no matter who? Yeah, I'm probably not going to go to San Francisco too much. I'm probably not going to go to LA too much. But am I going to go to all the other counties all throughout? Yeah, absolutely. Because there are a lot of counties in California, like mine, where they've never even seen Kamala. They have no idea. They only know what she looks like because she's on Fox News every once in a while. There are a lot of people who will respect a candidate regardless of how far away their beliefs are, if they sit down at a table and talk with them, if they go to the county fair and they talk with them, if they say, hey, you know what, I disagree with your approach to pretty much everything, but you know what, I want you to know I still am willing to sit here and talk with you and listen to you. There are a lot of people that have those feelings, and my county is a perfect example of that. There are a lot of people who I met with on the campaign trail when I ran for House that were like, you're a damn socialist, but I respect you. You're a damn socialist, but I respect you. I respect what you're trying to do. I don't like your ideas. I don't agree with your ideas, but I respect your ability to articulate those ideas to me in person, to my face, and I can respect that. There's many of those people that in the state that feel the same way, or that will feel the same way when they need us. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. We have a 54 county strategy to where we will go to every county in the state multiple times over the next few years, and that's where we're at.
I mean, it's going to take that. It's Santa Cruz County, at least in terms of Santa Cruz proper, their city council, as far as I know, is one of the few places that has.
Mongo.
Sorry, my dog, my moving.
All good.
What's going on? Go on.
Santa Cruz County, or Santa Cruz's city council, is made up entirely of no party preference people. They've got endorsements, certain like the DSA backed a couple of people that won this last time around, but they're all no party preference, and I think that something like that needs to happen in every local community. Like that's kind of it. You can't get out from underneath the duopoly when you constantly run as an outsider Democrat or an outsider Republican. But it doesn't exist. That's a bullshit phrase,
Right.
And I feel that way about people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I do, for as much good as she's doing in terms of where she's bringing the conversation, or what is allowed on network television now, and people sort of discussing MMT on network television now. Like that's
another thing. You get MMT. Thank you very much for that. Leading strong
Yes, yeah. So MMT, and so you asked a few different things. So as far as MMT goes, that to me was, you know, because I always ask the question, right, of why is it that we never say, how are we going to pay for this when we're doing shit for rich people, right? We never ask that question, and so I've always said that, I've always had that question of why does this not come up, and so really the kudos need to go to. People like Dr. Stephanie Kelton, Joseph Firestone, Stephen Grumdine, Real Progressives, of course, Joy. Those are the real people who really, when I was a fledgling candidate, and I was pushing for these social programs like not really Green New Deal at that time, but Medicare for All, definitely. And I was having trouble with people saying, "Hey, look, how are you going to pay for that?" Right? And so they were really the people who kind of took me under their wing and said, "Look, we can pay for anything we want to pay for." And so, yeah, back to your point, I think, yeah, does Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I just said this earlier, do I think she's the useful ally? Yeah. Is she far enough to the left where I would like her? No. But I mean, I'm basically a socialist. So from my perspective, she's and you know, I am a DSA member, right? I'm a dues-paying DSA member. But again, I feel the same way about DSA as I feel about her. Is it useful? Yeah. Does it really necessarily align with all of my goals? No. Am I going to utilize it and speak on ways that I agree with DSA as well as her? Yeah. Am I going to hold them accountable, though, when they're not going far enough or they're falling into the traps of you know, the how will you pay for it question? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question.
No,
but
I think it does. We feel the exact same way about buying shit for the show on Amazon. It's true.
There you go.
Is this shirt made out of human hair? Dude.
That reminds me. Will you go to him on the screen real quick? I'm gonna pull up Kamala Harris's website.
Okay, yeah.
And it's going to be on your screen for a second here.
Do you want me to split the screen with him?
Just wait a moment,
okay,
please. And yeah, and
now
you can go. Now you can split the screen there. So this is Kamala Harris's website. As noted by you and by Joy and by anybody with fucking eyeballs over the last week or so, there is no platform here. Kamala Harris has some words with periods after them, so you know that she's you know, I guarantee you before the end of the primary, the periods will be replaced by hands clapping. But there's no platform. There's some mealy-mouthed words, so there's some platitudes, and there's a store where you can buy a tote where you can put your principles for the rest of the primary season. And I checked, it's not entirely made by slave labor. It's apparently union labor, but it will be a great spot for you to hide your shame.
We highly recommend that you take her up on that toe. You know what's really funny is that I was telling Joy the other day, and I didn't say this on my interview with her, and I don't think I said it even on my interview with the Black podcast, which if you guys don't follow Wine Cellar Media, I did an interview with them the other day, and we talked a little bit about it. And actually, no, I did say this. I was 12 when I found out how California treats its prisoners. I was 12 when I found out that people were paid, you know, basically lower than, you know, basically slave wages and didn't have a choice. And so, you know, it's funny because people seem to forget that Kamala Harris was she was a proactive force and went out of her way to advocate for that continuation of that policy of, hey, no, this is a valuable labor pool, I believe was her words, right? And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Kamala Harris doesn't have a firm platform because there's not a hill that Kamala Harris is willing to die on. It's the same thing with Hillary. There's not a hill that they're willing to die on. We have plenty of hills that we're willing to die on. Medicare for all. I'm willing to die on that hill. doing something about climate change. I'm willing to die on that hill.
Well, we're all going to die on that hill whether we want to or not.
Whether we want to or not, yes, exactly, right? Exactly. We're going to die on that hill. That's whether we want to or not. But my point is, I'm not surprised that Kamala Harris doesn't have a hill that she's willing to die on, because there isn't one, right? There is not one. I'm sure she doesn't have a single issue that she would say, I would stake my presidency or my potential presidency on getting this single piece of legislation or single change enacted. She doesn't have one. She doesn't have a single one, and the one that would be common sense for her, like a no-brainer, is criminal justice reform, right? Why am I writing a bill on criminal justice reform where we're looking at giving all police departments body cams? Thank you, MMT, because we can't afford it, right? We're looking at getting all police departments body cams. We're looking at all of these different changes. Why am I writing that bill? Why is Kamala Harris not taking the time to write that bill and say, hey, look, I used to be a criminal prosecutor. I worked closely with the police departments and worked to incarcerate a lot of people. And here's what I noticed in my time that could be useful for us to change. It's because she doesn't care. That should be the hill that she would die on. But she doesn't care. She's always been about her own trajectory ever since she was fucking Willie Brown in the 80s. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to say I'm sorry for saying that. Ever since she was fucking Willie Brown in the 80s.
From saying it. You saved Steve.
It's true. It's true. She was fucking
Dodge
Willie Brown
that
in the 80s and the 90s.
racist bullet right there.
Yeah, because
no
you're the
shame to it, sister.
misogynist.
I mean, go ahead. Get your come up. But I'm just letting you know that that's where everything starts with her. There's articles about her at 29 years old, a year younger than me, going around to a party at Willie Brown's party, telling everyone she was his date to the party with his wife there. I mean, come on. This is not a hard thing to put together. Kamala Harris has always been about, where can Kamala Harris get to where she wants to be? She's always been about that. And so, to the original point, I'm not surprised there's not a platform on her page. That would be putting out a position that would be staking out the hills that she's willing to die on, and she's not going to do that as long as she can. So.
Fair enough.
We going to cash bail?
If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, because you're unlike fucking Kamala Harris. You actually have policy positions and things that you would like to get done that help people. The whole premise of cash bail, in my mind, is just another way to punish the poor, and it's been used like everything that deals with class. It's been used as a way to also promote a racist ideology. When you run out of black and brown people to beat over the head or extort, you fall back on poor white people. Like, that's just how that shit goes, and cash bail is definitely one of those programs. Philly's DA got rid of it. Did we get rid of it in 2018? I want to say there were cash bail ballot initiatives, but I fucking slept on that.
There were a few cash bail ballot initiatives, and I think the biggest one, obviously, is Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders is really the one who's been pushing for that, but where is Kamala Harris's name as a co-sponsor on that bill? It's not there. Again, that's a hill that she is not willing to die on. And you're absolutely right. Does cash bail disproportionately affect people of color? Yeah, of course it does. I think it's, personally, I think it's kind of barbaric. I've never been arrested, thank God. I've never been arrested. I've never, had to go through the bail system. But if I were, I can tell you this, if I were to get arrested tomorrow, would I be able to post bail? No. Despite me being a teacher, despite me being a nonprofit CEO and, and a Senate candidate, right, I wouldn't be able to post bail tomorrow. I would have to sit in jail and miss out on work, miss out on paychecks, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I'm not surprised that, she's not going to take the lead on that either. She's going to probably wait until it clears the focus groups, and then she'll go ahead and, once the focus groups say, hey, yeah, cash bail's bad, we don't like that, then she'll go ahead and co-sign onto it and co-sponsor it. And then she'll probably try to, pull a Hillary and pretend like she came up with it. As her years as a former prosecutor have informed her that cash bail is a bad thing and we should end that. But we'll never see leadership from her. We'll never see true, honest leadership from her. And that's where we're at as far as that goes. So, unequivocally, we are for ending cash bail. We think that there's a less punitive approach that can be taken. We think that there's a wealth of different experiences from law enforcement who don't agree with the way that we're currently doing things, to former prosecutors, to the prosecutor you mentioned, and Billy. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if it's the one I'm thinking of, he's the one that we should be saying, that's a progressive prosecutor, right? He's the one who's instituting all these changes in the way that Billy is doing things. But instead, we're trying to be, we're getting sold by the media that Kamala Harris is somehow A, a progressive, or B, a progressive prosecutor, when it's just simply not true. And so, yeah, to your point, yeah, there's definitely a lot that can be changed as far as criminal justice in general. I would love to see, again, body cams with police officers. Why do we not have body cams on every police officer? I've done ride-alongs with officers who have them, who have said, hey, look, I love having a body cam, because guess what? If I shoot someone who's unarmed, or I shoot someone who's the danger, we can come back to the camera and we can look at it. Am I saying that I think that it's right to ever shoot an unarmed person? No. But am I saying that, police officers like having body cams? All the ones that I talk to do. So why are we not talking about those things? Why are we not talking about, the appointing independent investigators to all police casualty or fatality incidents? We should have an independent investigator. The police should not be investigating themselves in those matters, period. There's lots of ways that we can change things. But, again, Kamala is not going to do those things because it would be a hill that she's not willing to die on. There's no hill that she's willing to die on.
So you're right. I think,
you have questions, I can tell. You were like, oh, okay, go ahead.
No, it's cool, man. I'm sure that there's hills that she would kind of like, well, no, because it's really like, if you're a mutable person, if you're if you're a person that can
change,
shed principles for power, if that's what you do, if that's how you roll, then you can sacrifice different parts of yourself on an unlimited number of hills, as long as there is the cash or the promise of future power keeping you going. Do you understand what I'm saying there? Like Hillary Clinton at one point was a very strong advocate for single payer health care.
Good old days.
She
remember that
was crucified.
Oh, to go back to 1993.
Okay, so do you see what I'm saying? So she fucking sacrificed that part of her on that hill, and she never looked back. There's so many different things that she, at one point, she was a very staunch advocate for the defense of traditional marriage, and
right.
And I don't believe that she changed her private opinion about that. I believe she publicly sacrificed that part of her because of political expediency. And Kamala Harris is absolutely no different in that regard. Like, there's a reason that the Hampton Stoners love her.
Right.
There's a reason that Steve Mnuchin unironically donates $50,000 to her campaign. There's she has offered protection and has shown that she is willing to be the smiling face of their agenda. Neoliberalism. And there's nothing unique about somebody who is willing to stump for the power elite whatsoever. There is nothing remarkable about that person.
And I mean, did you see that Donald Trump donated to her too?
I did
so I
see
think
that. That's
that's
funny.
super hilarious to me, is that he donated $6,000 to her in 2013 and 14. And so, you know, and does she think that we don't have access? That's really what I think of the elites as a whole. I think they vastly underestimate our ability to research. They're counting on us not doing our research. They're counting on us not remembering our history and knowing these things. Like you just rattled off, you know, 5 facts about Hillary Clinton that are true. They are undoubtedly true. She was at 1.4 single payer. She was at 1.4 traditional marriage. And so, you know, they're counting on us not being able to put those things together. They're counting on us not being able to say, hey, look, this is what the truth is. And they're counting on us and they're underestimating us. And so it is up to us to come together and say, hey, look, I found the truth. This is what the truth is. And for you two to take that truth and go spread it to 2 others and so on and so forth. And that is where they're going to continue to underestimate us. They're already doing it with Bernie. Look at what they're doing with Bernie. They're trying to say now again that Bernie's a racist and Bernie's a homophobe and Bernie's a sexist. And look at how all the terrible ways that Bernie is. And I'm like, I'm looking at it and it's backfiring. I'm seeing people say, hey, you know what? I'm black or I'm gay or both or I'm a woman or this or that. And I agree with what Bernie said. We shouldn't just take what someone's saying because they have a vagina and say, okay, that's great. I'm going to vote for you because you have a vagina. That's all he literally said, is that we should back up what the policy is behind people. And so, you know, from my perspective, there's that that condescending attitude. And you're right. That's why they love Kamala, because Kamala plays right into it. Kamala's always been fed with a silver spoon. She's always had everything she ever wanted. She lived in San Francisco, for God's sake. She wasn't in a poor family. She likes to pretend like she's from Oakland, but it's like, no, you're not from Oakland. You're from San Francisco. But that's okay. We're here to, again, expose that truth and say, look, Kamala, you're not from Oakland. You're from San Francisco. You always have been. It is up to us to continue to shed light on those things and to continue to speak out and with one voice, with no, that's not what the truth is. This is what the truth is. And that, I think that's a big responsibility that Bernie gave to us in a lot of ways, and that he really gave us all that right. You know, Bernie's whole thing was, it's not about me, it's about us. Not me, we. It's about what we need to do. And I think that any truly good politician, which there aren't that many, but any truly good politician understands that it's not about them, that the movement is the bigger part of the whole, and that they have to sacrifice themselves for that movement. And so, but I do have a question. What hills has Kamala died on? Because I don't know any hill that she's died on other than locking up Black and brown people for weed. I don't know any hill that she's died on other than locking up parents for truancy and putting them into jail. I think Joy said it was $2,000 for 180 days in jail or something, right? I mean, what other hill has she died on? Is my question.
Bravely stood up to millions of California homeowners who wanted to stay in their houses and not be foreclosed on. It was just her and the banks, you know, against
her and the bank.
And that just, I mean, that just takes a lot of a character there.
Lots of characters. Lots of terrible fucking characters. Yeah, lots of characters.
She's just a roach husk.
Right?
She's just I just couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I think you're right about a lot of things. And when you talk about how more people are active and more people are awake and more people are starting to talk about things like modern monetary theory in public and with people, and how the access to information is there. I don't think we're underestimated in that regard. I think that's why you see a 24-hour division network, you know, and by network I really do mean that in the most technical sense, like an affiliated group of people. There is a propaganda state in this. We are a propaganda state. We, in our regular, normal, mainstream corporate media, they function as different different takes of the propaganda state, and
Right.
the constant suppression of independent content creators, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on, the way that pro-Palestinian voices are silenced throughout the country, the way that that the blue checkmark people with 2 fucking follows and 0 followers show up, but Black Socialists of America can't get their blue checkmark, or you can't get yours. That is them saying, we don't underestimate you. In fact, we're kind of surprised you haven't built guillotines yet, so we're going to do everything we can to push you down, silence you, and marginalize you. And it is first, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win.
Right.
We're in the fight right now. We are no longer being ignored. We are actively being suppressed. We are actively being backed into the corner. So it's time, man. Like shit's bubbling right now.
Yeah,
and
I agree. I think there's a lot of people who feel the same, who are they're ready to get their guillotine, they're ready to get their yellow vest, and they're ready to have a general strike. And I'm not saying that I'm not one of them. I mean, for example, I'm a teacher who I substitute teach, and so I'm going through a rough time right now personally, because during December, I wasn't working, and so my paycheck for January, my paychecks were about half of what I normally would make. Only in a capitalist society would someone who works most of the time have a couple weeks off unpaid and then come back to basically, basically I made too much to where I can't get food stamps, but I made I made just enough to basically pay the basic expenses. Only in capitalist America is that okay. Is it okay that you were off for 2 weeks, not by choice? Trust me, if they had said, hey, look, you can take off Christmas Day, but then we want you here to clean out closets or sweep bathrooms or what, I would have done that without question, because I cannot afford not to. And so I think quite a lot of people are of the same mindset right now. They're mad as hell. And I think that, I appreciate you saying, or him saying that, that they don't underestimate us in that regard, because to me, it's like, I see a lot of underestimation. I see a lot of underestimation of the people who voted for Bernie, but then went around and voted for Trump. I see a lot of people underestimating that factor, and we're trying to pretend like that doesn't happen. Oh no, it happens. I know quite a few of them who voted for Bernie, and when Bernie got screwed, they were like, no way in hell am I voting for that woman, period. And so there is a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be done, pushing for a higher minimum wage. I'm pushing personally for 22 an hour. That is what Elizabeth Warren said in 2013 should be the minimum wage. So really, you figure that was 6 years ago now. What should the real minimum wage be? Look at my dog. He's so funny. What should the real minimum wage be? We're looking at closer to 20, 24, 25 an hour. We're going to push for 22. This whole fight for 15 is great, but it's a compromise, and I'm not willing to compromise on my values. That's where I've been at from the beginning. I'm not willing to say 15 is great. I'm willing to definitely vote for 15, but I'm willing to also raise my voice and say, fuck 15. 22 is where it's at, where it should be. And so, to your point, there's lots of things.
To a living wage.
If I remember,
I was just telling him what you were saying while he was gone for a couple of seconds, talking about raising the minimum wage to almost a living wage.
Yeah, and definitely I'm willing to listen to, economists about what a living wage should look like. When I tell people I'm for 22 an hour, the first thing, of course, is how you're going to pay for it. I'm like, well, actually, I have a plan to pay for it. In all corporate subsidies, in all corporate subsidies, period. Why are we subsidizing Exxon? Why are we subsidizing any company over a certain amount of employees? We gave Exxon, I think it was $5 billion last year. Why? But you're going to turn around and tell me that Exxon can't pay all of its people $22 an hour? I don't buy that. I don't buy that, and I will not. I will not vote for legislation that gives any subsidies to any corporation. I'm thinking 100. If you have 100 employees and you can't afford to pay them a living wage, then you don't need to have 100 employees. You need to find a way to downsize your business and run your business on a smaller scale. My parents owned a business. They owned a business for many years, a restaurant. They paid all of their employees a living wage. They didn't find it to be too hard. And guess what? When people came knocking saying, we'd really like to franchise you or expand you, my parents said no. Because if we do that, we're not going to be able to pay our people what we've always been able to pay them. You're not going to guarantee us that you're going to pay them at your franchise what we're asking you to pay them. So we're not going to franchise. And guess what? My parents are happy. I bet my parents don't wake up every night wondering if they made the right decision or they should have made a different choice. They're perfectly happy. And we need more people to think like that. If you are in business and you cannot pay a living wage, if you can look yourself in the mirror at night and brush your teeth and say, I'm a great person for paying my employees shit wages, then you don't need to own a business. And I'm not going to subsidize your business. And I think that we need more people to feel that way and to demand that be the case. It is the moral high ground to say you should pay people enough to be able to live so that they can start a business one day, so that they can do what you had the chance to do. And we have too many people that are willing to placate and willing to sacrifice on that. So that's my opinion.
And one of the biggest reasons that small business owners pay shit wages is because they are personally paying their profit into their own healthcare. Like healthcare is just so central to every aspect of American society, and it's got to be on purpose. I mean, it's not like we haven't had ample example of countries who have a single-payer system. When you've got a concentrated group of people whose focus it is to keep their own countrymen sick or broke because of it, I think that needs to be more of the part of the national conversation. I think that there's got to be a way to highlight the intent behind it. And I don't know if that's a conversation that would ever be allowed on corporate media. But I think people have to try. I think that we really need to use the political sphere as a way to call out the elite. And I do kind of, and that's why I'm thankful that AOC has started that conversation in the national media, but I am hesitant to be supportive of her personally because she's a sheepdog for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and I mean, there's lots of great people that are, I think, running. Like I said before, you guys should really try to sit down with Sema Hernandez.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
That's absolutely someone you should sit down with because she's been speaking truth to power for years now. Before I even became politically active, and she has that record to point to, like Bernie. And so, are you in your assertion that we should use our political motivations to speak on the truth? Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, CNN's never going to probably ever have me on unless it's as a oh my God, look at this scary socialist person running in California that could possibly, and that's great. And I'm going to use that. And I'm going to eat that up because, and it goes back to what I said before. I think that they do underestimate us. I think they do underestimate the mood. They think that this panem et circenses, right? The bread and circuses is going to continue working because it's worked for the last 20 years or so. I think they're going to wake up and they're going to find yellow vests outside of their homes, and they're going to find guillotines in the town square. Do I advocate violence? No, not at all. Do I think that that we should eventually come to the point to where we are willing to say, look, we are willing to burn this entire fucking country down if it means that he has health care or she has health care? Yes, we have to come to that. so I teach, and so the other day I told one of my kids, I said, you are your brother's keeper. And she said, well, what do you mean I am my brother's keeper? And I said, you are your brother's keeper. You are responsible for your brother. You are to have that attitude of caring and love towards that person. It doesn't matter if you like him or not. It doesn't matter if you want to be his friend or you want to date him or whatever. She was, high school freshman. So of course they're at that age where it's, oh, I don't want to be around him sort of thing. And I told her, I said, you are your brother's keeper. We have to be our brother's keeper. We have to continue that message that Bernie has inspired of us, it doesn't matter if you like someone. It doesn't matter if you agree with someone politically. What matters is that we are doing what is best for people for the sake of doing what is best. And we've lost that. We've lost that along the way. We've gotten so divided into camps like, oh, well, he's a Trumper, so I can't love or support him because that's not going to work. And that's not what Martin Luther King taught. And so that's why I thought it's so funny that Kamala announced on Martin Luther King Day, because the Martin Luther King that I know said, hate cannot draw that hate. Only love can do that. I choose to reject hate because it's a burden that I don't want to bear. That's what he said. And so from my perspective, I'm like, you don't even know Martin Luther King. You know nothing about the lessons and the time that he took to instill this message. And so you're right in that sense that I'm sorry, I'm all distracted. I lost my train of thought because I think okay, sorry. Someone left, I think, and my dog managed to open the door. I'm telling you, he's cute, but he is deadly. He gets into things and I'm like, how did you even do that? Apparently he opened my door somehow.
That's awesome.
Mongo's a public enemy, huh?
Yeah. I think Kamala might want to lock him up. I mean, honestly, she might want to lock him up because he's clearly black or brown skin. And
he's got death threats. He's got.
She would lock you up for his doggy truancy, though.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. For his truancy, right? Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Mongo, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. I apologize. I had to go wrangle him up because before the coppers came.
We're gonna kind of wrap up here, and there's a couple people coming in.
I feel like we covered.
I want to say something though, because I fucking said I was listening to the Black Thought on the way here, and I was. And he said something about separating fact from folklore. That's what you're doing. That's what we're trying to do. And what we have to do is do that in real time. It's fucking out of hand how not just revisionist history is pushed on people at the rate that it's pushed on people, but revisionist reality as it happens, as people's, as like Kamala's APAC speech comes out, as this happens in real time, it is spun the way that even the way that like a Roger Stone would spin for his candidate after a debate. Where both campaign managers go and tell why their candidate won and the other one lost, and both of them are blatantly lying through their teeth the entire time that they're doing it. That is happening to us as just regular citizens in real time. Reality is being presented in a fictional way.
Right.
And that's what we're up against, is what we're battling, is separating fact from folklore in real time. And
I spoke with Joy about it, and I said too, the cognitive dissonance that people have right now is just so powerful. And on one note, the teacher in me is fascinated by it, right? Because I'm like, you don't know that, or you don't remember that. And then on the other hand, it's horrifying. It's fucking horrifying, because it's like, how do you not remember that? I remember that. I remember some of this shit, and I'm 30, right? So I'm younger, right?
Aww.
Compared to a lot of people. I know, right? No, so, it's like, I remember this shit when I was 16 years old. How do you not remember this? You know, and I'm talking with, you know, much older people than I. That we're talking in their 40s that were clearly my age when this shit was going on, and they clearly proclaim that they've been paying attention. And so the cognitive dissonance, we have to, I think, number one, we have to act with gentle hearts and gentle spirits. It's hard. It's fucking hard, right? When you get these fucking Kamala stands or whatever they fucking call themselves, and they're like, no, Kamala Harris is great. She has a vagina and enough, you know, skin pigmentation to where she's wonderful. And like, no, she's fucking terrible. And it's really easy for us to fall into the trap, number one, of pulling a Hillary and treating them with disrespect. So above all, we have to respect them. We have to love them. We have to gently encourage them to come to reason. And Joy and I talked about that. You know, it sucks. It sucks because we have been appointed the hardest task of all, right? We have the hardest task of all because we're the ones who are truly awake to what's going on. We know both sides fucking suck. And we've got people on both sides that think that they're, you know, wonderful. But I think our first task above all has to be to act with a spirit of love, to act with loving intentions. Yeah, do your ideas suck? Yeah. Does neoliberalism suck? Yeah. Does the candidate you support suck? Absolutely. But do you suck as a person? No. Am I going to love you through this, even though you're a shitty person right now? Am I going to love you through this? And am I going to show you, hopefully, the seeds that will inspire something greater in you? Yes. I mean, we were all at one point neoliberals, right? We were all neoliberals. I remember back in 2006 when Barack Obama was, you know, he had done the speech, I think in 2004, and they were talking about him becoming president even then. I remember being a little, you know, a Barack Obama fanboy, like, oh, yes, very Obama. Even back then, we were all neoliberals at one point in time, so to speak. And so it is our duty, again, to be respectful. It is our duty to gently awake from slumber our brothers and sisters who are still sleeping, because they are our brothers and sisters. They might be fucked up in their mindset, but they're our brothers and sisters. It is our duty to care for them, just as someone cared for us, just as someone had patience for us in helping us attain our awareness. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's one way to go.
Yeah.
But we all know we're in the corner of heads on spikes and general strikes.
Yeah, we
all of us.
Neither Sarah or I will be running for office anytime soon.
John Michael, separation of corporation and state, 2022.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I'm excited for your future, and you know, I really am. We'll be following, and it'd be really nice to have you here in the studio when you're in our, you know, one of the 50 counties here. We would love to have you in the studio and maybe connect a dot with somebody else that you might be interested in meeting, and just kind of breathe that air.
Yeah, I would love to come in person, and I know that we'll be, you know, we're kind of again laying we're early in our campaign, right? So we're 2022 is when we're looking at running, and we've been asked before, and I've been asked especially lately, what if Kamala wins the White House? Are you going to run in the special? What if, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so from my perspective and from my team's perspective, we will seek this seat in 2022. Whether she holds it, whether someone else holds it, that is when the election is going to be for us. And it's because we need to build up the grassroots, the true grassroots, right? Not the grassroots that Kamala is trying to pretend like she has. We're going to build up those true grassroots connections and those activist connections and those people who are speaking out regardless of who is listening or not. And so right now we're in the logistics, right? We're trying to figure out where to really spend more of our time. As I said before, we're not going to probably spend a lot of time in LA. Do I have friends in LA that I'm gonna go down there? Yeah, absolutely. Am I going to make it a point to be there as much as possible? Yeah. But am I going to prioritize LA over like my county or the other neighboring counties that are smaller that don't have a big metropolitan city? No, we're not going to prioritize LA over those counties because that's where the votes are. Those people are neglected. They don't feel like Kamala Harris or any other politician cares at that level about them. And so that is, you know, plentiful ground for us to plant seeds. And so, yeah, we'll definitely be up your way. I would love to come and sit in the studio and do an interview in person. I would love that so much.
We would too.
And it's really important that you're doing what you're doing, because if you're going to run for Senate in California, if you're not the establishment candidate, you're running against LA, San Francisco, and fucking
San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego. That's it.
San Diego, not so much. They're a little bit more. San Diego's a little bit more independent-minded. In fact, we probably will, out of those three, we will probably spend more time in San Diego than we do anywhere else. Just because San Diego has, they're more expensive than LA, I believe. I think they just passed up LA in terms of, rent prices and stuff like that. So San Diego is probably a place we're going to spend a little bit more time in, but they're a little bit more independent-minded. They voted for Republicans in the past. They almost went for Trump, I want to say. So they're a little bit more independent-minded.
Definitely did.
Yeah. I think we're, if not the most expensive county overall in California, we're in the top 5. We just had rent control fail here because of a great coordinated effort.
We can find a better way to do it. That's one of our up and comers said. He's like, I'm not too disappointed. I think we can find a better way, and a better bill for the people.
Yeah, and I mean, there were a lot of people who felt that way about, what was it, Prop 33 or something like that. There were a lot of people who felt that way about that prop in November failing, that genuinely do support rent control. But I digress. We're definitely going to be looking at each county. We're going to be visiting each county at least. I'm hoping for at least once a month. Once we really start going, I know that that's probably not necessarily realistic. But especially with me teaching, but if we can get, our donations in line to where we can afford for me to campaign, full time, then we probably will do that. We probably will spend as much time as possible going to different things. I don't anticipate that I'll ever be given the stage and the voice that Kamala will get. But I think that the good thing is that I don't think as many people are going to run against her. Regardless of if she wins or if the seat is open. If the seat's open, that's a different story. But if she loses, which I firmly believe that Kamala Harris will never be the president of the United States, if she loses, which she will, and she comes back to California and tries to pretend that she's for California again, I don't think she'll get nearly as many competitors as Feinstein got this last cycle. There were like 20 to 30 candidates in that race. I don't think Kamala will have nearly as many. I think it's going to really, and that's why we started running so early, was to solidify that support early on, to get progressives like, David Hildebrand. I love David. That's who I supported last cycle, was David. I want David's support this cycle. Allison Hartson's another one that I've been trying to kind of figure out, can we get her to support us? She was, a quote unquote progressive. There's a lot of progressives that I don't think are going to run this next time. And that's why we started running so early, to kind of consolidate that support and get it together soon. So
where can people go to donate to you and read more about you?
So they can't donate to us yet. We haven't opened a bank account yet. And
okay.
So, So for now, just follow us on Twitter. So you can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @JM for California. Our Facebook handle, same thing, facebook.com/JM for California. Our Instagram, @JM for California. So it's the same on all three. It's @JM for California. And we're, right now we're just trying to really consolidate that support. Money's great, but as we learned from Hillary, if you have $1 billion and you don't know how to fucking spend it, well then, that's not going to really help you. And so, I appreciate the asking, where can people donate? We'll have I think we're going to have our bank account open probably next week. We're just trying to get everything, we're really trying to take our time and do it right this time around. And then hopefully we'll have a website up within a month or so is what we're shooting for. So yes, definitely for now they can follow us. Every retweet, like, share, all of that stuff really helps us, because it's exposing our voice to your audience and letting them know, hey, look, this guy's running in California right now. And that's really, we grew our Twitter audience from like 200 people to like 1,000 in the last month, just from expressing our ideas, expressing what we think should be done. And so we want to continue that growth, definitely.
Kick ass. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And
time well spent on a Sunday afternoon.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Better way to spend my Sunday.
We look forward to having you here in the studio, and good luck to you on the way.
Good luck to us all.
Absolutely. I will see you guys one of these days, hopefully. And I thank you for having me again. I really appreciate it.
All right, John. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.